How many here, it's the first time you've come to a DFW DataViz event? Nice. If you're not already a member, you can go to meetup/DFW DataViz with this bit.ly link and sign up to the group so that you get emails when we schedule new speakers. We generally have one a month. We've been pretty consistent about that. And we cover topics, everything from good chart design, good presentation design, programming in R and D3, and marketing, infographics, and anything related to communicating and designing with data. We're always looking for especially local speakers. So if you or you know somebody at your company that would be a good speaker, also reach out, because we're always looking for local speakers so that we can keep it free to all of you guys. If you're interested, I am filming this one. I have filmed a number of the past ones. We have a YouTube playlist at bit.ly/DFW DataViz video, where I think I've got 6 or 7 of them up. I've got probably the last 3 or 4 I still need to process and clean up and then put up there. But if you want to see some of the older topics, we have a bunch of them out there on YouTube. And all these slides are online. I'll give you the link in a second. You don't have to write all that down. I like to open it up. If any of you know that your company is looking to hire or has open positions for data scientists, analysts, data viz designers, anything like that, anybody want to talk about any open positions at the company where you work? Or the other, and the thing we're talking about tonight is personal branding and resumes. Anybody looking for work that wants to share and sort of let everybody know what you're looking for? Go ahead.
So I'm, excuse me, I'm first time here. My name is Tim Manders. I just wrapped up 16 years at Intel, and I've been doing everything from web analytics to business intelligence, building out dashboards in Domo and in Power BI, and lots of other tools. And so I'm looking for anything related to project management, data analysis, dashboard design, etc.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak up? Sure.
Well, my name is Bill Casey. I'm actually looking to be a junior developer focused on C# and Java, interested in user interfaces, visualizing data. I used to work on dashboards as well. Don't have 16 years of experience, but it's still something I'm looking to get into, junior level. Let me know.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going. I lost it. A couple upcoming events that I know are here in the area. The Big Design Conference. Anybody going to the Big Design Conference is this weekend, Friday and Saturday, actually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'll be giving a talk on good data viz design. Preston is another speaker. You want to mention your talk real quick?
Sure.
Have you figured it out yet? Is that a title?
Yeah. It's called Multidimensional UX, Reality is Your Canvas. And I'll be looking beyond VR into the world of holographic user experience design. So it will hopefully blow your mind, because it blows my mind every day.
Big Design is an annual conference, great conference over in Addison. We have, if you're interested, I think they only had less than 10 tickets left. But we have a discount DataViz, it'll get you 20% off the registration price. And it's at bigdesignevents.com. If you don't go, we're all going to be Twittering all Friday and all Saturday with the hashtag BigD16. We're just Big D.
So, Randy,
yes.
I was double checking to make sure we still had, so if you're talking about data science, I work for AT&T, and I was double checking to make sure we still had a lot of openings, but play now, looking a lot for data scientists, programming language. They like people who've had experience with Hadoop, anything like that. So, and I can give you the website.
If you would, in the comments for the meetup, just post the link to the whatever the jobs board or whatever it is for like the Dallas positions or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That way all you guys can get to it. Coming up later in September, the symposium from the Digital Analytics Association here in Dallas. Anybody a member of the DAA? A couple. That's coming up pretty shortly on September 22nd. They have member and non-member prices, so you don't have to be a member to go to the conference. but it's just a one-day conference, so it's pretty good. And then on the off chance that any of you want to go to New York City, the big data strata conference is happening September 27th to the 29th. And we also have a discount code if you want to register at 20% off. It's called PC Pool is the code, just in case any of you are thinking about headed to New York City. Anybody know of any other events coming up, meetup groups, conferences here local in the area that are worth sharing with the group? You got one, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm teaching a class on R and Google Analytics, November 10th through December 8th, on Thursday nights, through SMU's continuing ed program.
So once a week, 6 weeks, right?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, 4 weeks, okay. And
You need to know a programming language, and you really need to know something about Google Analytics, but not a lot.
I know all the Google Analytics.
If you know a programming language, that would work.
So I know that class is through SMU's CAPE program, the Continuing and Professional Ed. My class in November, December is also through the CAPE program. They have given us, do you have a discount code for yours? They've given us this MUDB 216 for all the fall classes. I know it gets $50 off my course. It also should get some discount off of that course as well. You want to bring it up?
Yeah, Tableau had a conference in November.
Mm-hmm.
That's in Austin.
In Austin, right? Tableau users? Nice handful, good. All right, I jumped ahead, let me jump back. Okay, so sponsors tonight, SMU's giving us space. InfoNewt is my company, so I put basically everything together and organize it and bring the cookies. There's a cookie station over here. Please, everybody have a cookie. There are drinks by the door. Please take a drink. Please get up anytime and get another drink or another cookie. Let's finish those up. I will open it up. If any of you work for a company that might want to be a sponsor, like I said earlier, I'm focusing on trying to get low-cost local speakers so we don't have to fly people in, but I have a lot of good speakers that would love to come talk if we can just get them here. So I have a sheet that's just got some basic sponsorship opportunities if your company or if you know somebody in your company that might be interested, but of course we can always come up with something custom if there's something any company wants to do, but people like Alberto Cairo or Kaiser Fung or Carl Good or a lot of the infographics people around the country would be happy to come and speak if we can just fly them here. So if we can get some sponsorship, we'll start bringing in people to talk as well. Okay, last chance for a free ebook. Anybody who didn't have a chance to throw your name and email address or business card in the bucket before we draw? So we have a lot of odd shaped pieces of paper in here. What?
In all seriousness though, is there potentially like a lecture or something about designing a business card? Because I saw something that somebody actually had a really good looking business card that showed like their GitHub profile, their LinkedIn, their Twitter, things like that. So is there potentially in the future something that could be said about designing a business card with principles in mind around infographics and layout and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
See, I was talking about holograms.
I'm not here
Brooke.
for hologram.
All right.
I'm going to email you the link to get to one of those. You already have my book.
Yes. Great read, highly recommended.
So who's got a receipt? Inbin? Inbin one? Here you go. You get one of these. Here you go. Okay, it's a small group. This is very conversational. If you have any questions anytime, we can stop, we can talk, we can go down tangents. You can disagree, that's fine. 5 things real quick about me. InfoNude is the company that I run. It's my company, and we design data visualizations for companies all over the world. About half of what we do are online infographics for marketing and social media, maybe even sales pitches. The other half of what we do is under NDA with proprietary data. A lot of companies trying to do better internally with the data they have. So board meeting presentations, sales training, employee training, all kinds of posters and stuff that go inside a company that will never be published online, but that's the kind of work we do. I run the website Cool Infographics. Conveniently, my book is also called Cool Infographics. Worked out really nicely that way. Running this group, and then I mentioned earlier the class I teach at SMU. It's once in the spring and once in the fall. This fall is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be data visualization and dashboard design. My class is 6 weeks, 1 night a week, for 3 hours each week. So it start in November and go all of November and the first couple weeks of December. Oh, and that's the course. Tonight's topic is kind of a joint combo topic. So personal branding and then how it sort of correlates and integrates with infographic resumes and how DataViz and just basically using visual information relates to both. All the links are available at this one website, including these slides. So if you just write down this one URL, you can get to everything. You got it? Taking a picture? If you go over there, of course I put my glasses down. So here, you can find the slides at this link, and then down below, these are all the links and examples we're going to go through tonight. So you can just, you don't have to write any of them down, you just click on them and you can get to them. Okay, we need to run through a couple data visualization basics before we get into personal branding basics. So there are a couple basic things about DataViz. One is we are drowning in data. Every single day we all put more data out on the internet. And so when you're out there looking for something, every single day that pile that you're looking through gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not going to get smaller. It's just going to keep getting bigger. 2017, we're not going to go, whew, thank God we don't have all that data anymore. Our life is all much easier now. It's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. The estimate is that the entire written works of mankind in every language we've ever written down since the beginning of recorded history is about 50 petabytes. That's everything that as a species we've ever written down. In 2014, Facebook revealed they were opening a new facility, and so their data warehouse storage, their data storage was up to 300 petabytes. Why does Facebook need more than 6 times the entire written works of mankind? Any guesses? Not you, Brooke.
Multimedia?
Yes. Cat videos. Videos, images, audio, and what we really don't ever see is metadata, right? So a lot of IoT data, a lot of data being generated that's not stuff that we would write down or read as an article or something like that. You as individuals, as an average American, are exposed to what they call the information equivalent of 280 newspapers per day. That's how much information you have to absorb, filter, decide what's important, decide what to file for later, and throw the rest away. Back in 1986, it was only 40. And in 2007, and this was the number I had when I wrote the book, was 174. So when we talk about our attention spans keep getting shorter and shorter, anybody heard that our attention span is now shorter than a goldfish?
8 seconds.
Yeah, so our attention is 8 seconds. This is why. Is because you are trying to figure out what to do with all this data, and you have to go through more data every single day. Moving on the internet, as far as data transfer, this is called the Cisco Visual Networking Index, and in 2016, we were moving about 88,000 petabytes per day across the internet. Sorry, not per day, per month. It'll get to per day soon. Sometime late this year, pretty close to late this year, early 2017, it's going to cross over that 100,000 petabytes a month. amount of data that we're just moving across the pipes. So like I said, not only is it hard to find what you're looking for, it gets harder every single day. Now, we have a couple advantages from a data visualization design aspect. Number one, we are very visual creatures. I've seen studies at 60% or 90%, this one says 80% of your brain is dedicated to visual processing. You are primarily a visual creature. You can look at this, especially if you come across this in real life, and within nanoseconds, recognize the lion and understand the meaning that your life is now in danger. It's time to start running, climbing a tree, pull out your gun, whatever you gotta do. But you can do that in a nanosecond. You are still the best machine on the planet for pattern recognition, for visual pattern recognition. And it's a very effective way to get information into your brain. The other piece that's really important, and really important for what we're talking about tonight, is called the picture superiority effect. And what this tells us is if all I do is stand here and talk to you, or you just read an article in text, 3 days from now, you will only remember 10% of that information. That's all you're going to be able to regurgitate after a few days. But if I can tie that information to a visual that goes along with that concept or with that data or with that information, you're now more likely to remember up to 65% of that information. It's a huge impact that you're trying to share information that you want people later to change the way they make decisions, change their behavior, maybe change their buying patterns. You want them to remember what you're sharing with them at a later date. And that's a big reason of why we make information visual. So imagine that you're a hiring manager. Put yourself on the other side of the shoe, that you're a hiring manager or a recruiter, and you're about to go try to fill a new open position. So you're going to go out on the internet, you're going to post this new job. And it's actually scary because once you post something out there, you're going to get flooded. The fantasy is you'll have a couple good candidates show up, you'll do a couple interviews, and you'll hire somebody. And that's nice and easy. But their job is actually much harder than that. Once they post a job, it's like the oncoming horde, attacks the castle because you actually get hundreds and hundreds of resumes and responses to any open position that you put out there. So it's a scary effect to be a hiring manager and just, I'm gonna have to go through hundreds of resumes. I really want to post the job. I need somebody, but I don't even want to go through this process. On the flip side, if you're the candidate, and if you recognize this is, where's Waldo? Oh, okay. You want to stand out, right? You want to make it easy to find you in this sea of everybody else. You want it to be easy for them to remember you, to find you, and know who you are. If you're actually out there trying to apply for positions or find a new job. And so that's what we're talking about tonight. This is what 200 resumes looks like. And imagine that, this is your morning task, is to read through 200 resumes and try and find some adequate ones that you can then pass along to the hiring manager and see if they actually want to phone screen or interview some of these candidates. It's a daunting task. The research from the Ladders, somebody familiar with the Ladders, the recruiting website, is that you have 6 seconds. Recruiters will read a resume for 6 seconds. And they've got this pretty good article about the heat zone and what they're looking for and what they do when they skim through and look through resumes. And that, talk about the 280 newspapers per day, and they've got these 200 resumes to skim through. They are not going to read every single word you put on your resume. They're skimming. They're looking for the highlights so they can move on and decide whether you go in the trash or if you go into the follow-up pile. So personal branding is, the definition of personal branding is what do people or recruiters or hiring managers, what are they going to find about you when they go looking for you online? What are they going to find when they search for you? What are they going to find on your profiles? What out there is going to prove to them that they really should care? Visual personal branding, what we're talking about tonight, is that data viz, that extra visual information that they find is actually more likely what they're going to remember of you after they go look up 10, 20, 30 candidates that pass through the initial screen. And what you don't want them to find is your drunken party photos. This is the last thing you want your recruiter to find. Now, you might have the best resume ever, but if this is what they find of you online, you're going to have to look somewhere else. You want to put things in place, in easy places for them to find, that will really communicate who you are and why they should continue to talk to you. So the first thing you ought to do is Google yourself. Has everybody here Googled yourself? Not quite everybody. Come on, raise them high. Have you Googled yourself? Okay, good. There are two things you ought to do when you Google yourself to make it closer to what somebody else is going to see when they search for you. The first one is put your name in quotes so that Google doesn't treat your first name and your last name as two separate words and mix in a whole bunch of other search results. If you put your name, your full name in quotes, then Google will search for occurrences of that full name altogether. And then the second thing is up in the top right corner, up here you have the choice of view private results or view global results. And what you want to do is view global results. You don't want to see the results that Google knows about you and trying to show you links based on what Google knows about you. You just want to see what other people see. And so you want to switch over to these Google global results so that you have a much better feel for what other people are seeing when they type in your name and search for you on Google. How many results on page 1 are actually about you? Right, and that's going to be different for everybody in this room to figure out how many of these results are actually results about you or about somebody else that has the same name. And so that's what you really need to think about controlling and putting it, ideally, more content out there so that you occur more often in these top 10. I actually have all 10 when you search for Randy Krum. The other thing is that which social media accounts show up here are the social media accounts that they're going to look at to see what public content you've shared. So for me, I've got LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. But if you use other social media, if you use Instagram or whatever, and that's what shows up, then that's what they're going to look at. So this is where they're going to find what social media accounts are you active on in the public, that you actually post public information on. The first, if you go back, my first #1 hit is my personal website. It is really, really helpful to set up a one-page website as your personal homepage. This is another one. This is Veronica Belmont. This is a one-page landing page about her that gives you a little description, and these are all links, and she's very active in social media. These are all links to her social media accounts, and that's it. That's the whole website right there. And it does really, really well when people search for you. This is built on About.me. Anybody have an About.me page already? 3, 4 people? You can do one for free, set up a pretty basic one, and they have a pro level too, which I think is only like $4 a month. Something like that to give you advanced linking features, and you can give it your own URL, that kind of thing. But just what you want is just, this is where you can tell people who are looking for you where your good stuff is. You can say, look at my videos, look at my presentations, look at my work on my LinkedIn profile or whatever. This is your chance to direct them to where you want them to find information about you. So this one's free. This is mine. I built this on Squarespace, so I pay, I think, $7 a month to host this. And so for me, it's, what are the 3 things that I do? Some photos and all these links across the top to presentation slides and videos and the book. All those go to other places on the web, right? So this is just a one-page landing page where people can find stuff. And Google loves this. And this becomes, in my case, the #1 hit when you search for my name on Google. Photos matter. You actually want a really good headshot, and you're going to use it in more than one place online. And you want it to be fairly professional, just your face, not your whole body doing something, well lit, that kind of thing. These are some people that I'm connected to that I would say have poor headshots when you look at, say, their LinkedIn profile, right? Either a sketch or an illustration or some shot where they're so far away you can't even tell what they're doing, or it's so dark and poorly lit you wouldn't be able to recognize them in a lineup. You want to get yourself, you can do it on your own phone. It doesn't mean you have to pay for one, but get yourself a good headshot. This is something people, visual, they're gonna remember this. This is how they're gonna recognize you.
What if I don't want to be recognized in a lineup?
Then you're gonna damage your possibilities. I know some people don't. Some people leave them as blank. This is what shows when you got nothing. But when it actually comes to finally, say you get all the way to an interview, they're still gonna see you.
But in all seriousness though, should we actually get a professional photographer to do this, or just someone with like a friend with a decent camera?
I would go with a friend with a decent camera.
Okay.
As long as they understand the language.
Yeah, as long
Yeah.
as you're well lit and you can see your facial features and it doesn't look like too dark and you're out back somewhere in a dark alley.
They need to understand lighting, but they also need to understand how to make the background unimportant.
Yes.
So I got a headshot at Target, like $60, and they'll give you 3, they'll let you pick out your top 3 and put it in CD right there. So you can kind of find that middle ground between there and a beginning professional.
And I would even say check the conferences you go to. Anybody go to the Rocks Digital conference in June? They had a station set up there. A photographer was doing free headshots. Throughout the whole conference, he was there doing free headshots. So depending on what conferences you're going to, in the upcoming, say, 6 months in this fall and winter, you might actually have an opportunity to get one for free.
So even if it's relatively close up, you wouldn't be seeing much of a background anyway. It's like, well, up against like something like this wall, you wouldn't be seeing much of it, so.
Right.
Is it mainly just like a solid color, or?
Well, but it's a solid color that doesn't blend with your face color.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll save the question for the photographer, but. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Do you have a preference or a suggestion? Sometimes I see a lot of like, some of these are fairly casual,
Yep.
but other ones.
Like
where
this
they're-
guy's obviously like out in the backyard or something like that.
He's at a cookout, but some of the other guys are more, it's formal and they're in a shirt and tie. I mean, do you think that holds any weight or no?
It does, and I would say dress for the way you want people to see you. Like if you are trying to become a CEO somewhere, you probably want to be in a tie.
It's
If-
like establishing voice.
Yeah, it is a visual brand of your
It's
own.
part of your brand. Who are you?
I tend to wear Hawaiian shirts. That's part of my visual brand.
But I've seen a lot more like Guy Kawasaki's there, where, it's got kind of the not fuzzy, but that soft background and whatever else, and he's.
With a shallow depth
he's
of
not
field,
quite-
and it's
he's
all
not
fuzzy in the back.
posed. And he's not quite posed, but it's still got a really good expression, and I'm curious, because I've seen a lot more
And that's a younger.
of those these days.
Yeah, that's a younger photo. It's actually current photo makes him look really old.
I think people like to hide those that they like, those that they can relate to. So looking at the picture, if they're smiling and it's more fuzzy and you're like, oh, that's a likable person, yeah, I will want to speak to them. Versus someone else who's not smiling or has a bad demeanor, or you can't really see their eyes. Your eyes are important, and you can see your eyes and they look open and bright. So I think those are some of the things that I utilize when I talk to them.
Unless you're an accountant. Anybody here an accountant? Then you want to look mean, like you're willing to say no to people. No, you can't spend that money. I don't know if there's a good or bad. I mean, I think this follows a little bit of the rule of thirds, right? Because he's shifted over just a little bit. I don't know if that's ideal or not. I would say it's just as good as Marissa's, front and center.
Yeah, I mean, speaking as an avid photographer, that's a nice shot, except the human eye goes to the brightest thing in the image, and even though the background is a little soft, you can see something's going on back there and it's bright, so your eye goes there first.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is, if you want to get into photography, right? The first thing you're going to look at is their eyes and where are they looking, right? You can get all kind of fancy if you're kind of looking down here, which is looking down at your LinkedIn profile. And they'll follow your eyes and figure out, what are you looking at? Where am I going with this? Okay, so your LinkedIn profile, right? That's where you're going to put a headshot. This is Richard Branson. I'd probably like less of his body, more of his face, but that's what he does. And it's very important. This is probably second to Google. This is probably the number 2 place that someone's going to go look you up and try and figure out what information you have posted publicly. And we're going to look at some of this stuff. So when you bring up your own profile, this button here allows you to view your profile as other people so that you can check out how does your profile look when somebody who's not one of your connections actually looks you up and tries to find information about you. Once you do that, you're given the choice up here to view your profile either as one of your connections or as the public who is not one of your connections.
What is the name of the button?
View profile as, back up. Yeah, view profile as right there. And feel free to bring it up. You got your laptop, bring up your own profile. Right, so here, and it's always asking you, please add more information. Do you know these people? But if I hit view profile as, it brings me over to this fairly sanitized version. It starts with, this is what it looks like to your connections. So if you scroll down, these are all the things that your connections can see in your profile as you go down. And then if you switch over, the second choice up here is public. So if a recruiter who's probably not one of your connection goes to look for you, this is what they're going to see publicly. And depending on your privacy settings and depending on how you've set up each one of these sections as to whether they're viewable publicly or not, this gives you an opportunity to see what are they going to see. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you is articles. So has anybody here posted a long form article on LinkedIn? If you post long form articles on LinkedIn, it is automatically this top section. All the other sections you can move around and you can put your education as your top section, or in this case I got my summary as my next section. But no matter what I do down here, any articles you post and the visuals or images that are in those articles are going to be at the top. This is what the first thing that anybody's going to see. And if you haven't posted anybody, this section isn't even here. So if you haven't posted any articles at all, this is just gone, and it starts with whatever your top section is. If you haven't, on the main page of LinkedIn, you have choices here of just share a little update, which is what this whole news feed is just updates of what people have shared. But over here is write an article. You should have a button here, and it actually gives you a pretty big editor and lets you bring in text. So if you've written blog posts anywhere else, if you've written thoughts, or if you just want to make something up so that you post some images that'll show up at the top of your profile, you can go here, type a headline, put some images in, and type a short article. It can be 2 paragraphs. It almost doesn't matter because the only thing that's going to show up in your profile is the image that you put here, whatever image you put in the long form article.
The other nice thing is if you can have a blog, you can put those little social media things at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually post whatever your blog entry is to your LinkedIn and immediately get results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they don't care that it's not unique content. LinkedIn is happy that if you posted this on a blog somewhere else or on a news feed or whatever, that you there also post it here. So anything I've posted here, I've put on the Cool Infographics site. The bottom of this article would say, originally appeared on Cool Infographics, and would actually link back over to my blog. So it doesn't have to be unique. It can be something you've posted before. So very valuable, because you see it's just the title and the image for each of these, and a recruiter or hiring manager might go, hey, that's cool, and never actually click on it, or they might actually click through and want to go read those articles. But it also helps demonstrate that hopefully these articles are something related to your career or the skills you have so that it's relevant to you trying to find a new position. Farther down, every section now in the rest of the LinkedIn profile allows you to add files. You can put images, videos, links to online slides from presentations, or complete documents. If you want to put a Word doc or a PDF or something like that, you can attach those as well. And this shows up not only in this case, the summary section, but every position that you have down here lets you add files to go along with every one of those positions. If you wanted to put an image with each one, you could. By default, it will only show 5. You can put as many as you want. You could have 10, 20, 12, whatever you want, but it's only going to show 5, and it's got this tiny little see more button that I would guess most people don't click. I actually do have more hidden behind there. So if I view as, right, you scroll down, right here are 5. If I see more, you see more images or videos or presentations or anything farther down. But assume that most people aren't going to do that. Most people are only going to see these 5 and go from there. And any one of these they click on, it gives them the full image and a description that goes along with it. If this happens to be a YouTube video, they can actually play the video right here.
We have an information overload problem. Too much information and not enough time to get through it all.
You all know that. But they don't have to, leave LinkedIn or do anything else like that. It cuts them off into these sections. So like this is actually the full cover of the book, but I should probably optimize an image that actually fits within these constraints. And it automatically does this 2-3 layout. So even though you see more, as you keep going down, it's always 2-3, 2-3, 2-3. It's going to keep going in that format. You can rearrange them so that the ones you want have this larger, wider format. So you can rearrange which ones are where, but it's always going to be 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3. And then if you go farther down, like I said, let's show less. So like here's the organizer, the DFW DataViz group, right? And here's our logo. So it's just an image. Any section you have farther down, you can put images in as well. It's interesting to note that most of that is visible to your connections. So here's to other sections. Oh, and it adds icons. So if you haven't noticed, LinkedIn automatically adds icons to your LinkedIn profile from every company you say you've either worked with or are part of. So I teach at SMU, it automatically went and found SMU's logo. I used to work at NCH, it's got that logo. Newell Rubbermaid, the Eaton Corporation bought the company I work for, which used to be called Cooper Industries, so that logo's there. So as long as you've put in a company name that LinkedIn knows, it will go to that company page, grab the logo, and show it in your profile.
Does the premium membership give you anything extra visually?
I don't think so. I think it's more about how many mails you can send and connections you can have and that sort of thing. Unless anybody knows differently.
So I noticed on yours, you also have kind of like the cool infographics, your book showing in the back.
Yep.
Where is that?
I didn't really talk about that or set up a slide, but you have the opportunity to change this cover photo in the back. This used to fit, but they changed it, so now it's cutting off the text, so they've changed the layout of the way it works. So you'd have to design an image knowing that this much of it's going to be covered up, and that it's only going to be this high. It used to be a taller image. But when you're editing your profile, that's probably a good point.
I think that's only on premium too. Yeah.
That up here you can edit background.
It's available for everyone.
So it's the background.
So you can choose any of these default ones, right, or upload your own.
How did you get to that? Where you pick your own picture?
Just by clicking on, we're going to cancel this. So up here in the header, if I just hover over it, it says edit background.
And if you don't
That
have
button
this,
goes
it's
away
add.
if I don't go there.
This is add a background photo.
Oh, if you don't have one, it'll probably say add background.
Yep.
Okay.
So I just pulled that.
I don't think there's any limit. You can change that every day if you wanted to. Have a happy Tuesday. I'm out of the office today, but I don't think you want to do that. Again, don't make that your drunken party photo. So those logos are automatically added, and also you ought to check and make sure that it actually picked up the right company, so that it's showing the right logos on your own profile. What's interesting is if you switch over to public, which is generally where, right, a recruiter or a hiring manager, somebody in the HR department who's not one of your connections looks up your profile, they are only going to see visuals from your article posts and the company logos. So any images I add to the summary, the public can't see. So if I say view profile as and switch to public, right, so now if I scroll down, you see articles, you see my text summary, no images from the book, but you do see company logos for every position I have listed.
Does that depend how you set your public viewing settings?
I don't think so, but potentially. I haven't been able to find a setting to change it. That doesn't mean it's not there. Okay, Facebook. So if we switch to Facebook, you have some of the similar things. You have your square profile photo. It helps if it's exactly the same photo. So people looking for you, they go, oh, that's the same person. That's who I'm talking about. I know a lot of people like to change their Facebook one often, but I tend to leave it just alone. Again, you can change the background. That photo you can change as much as you want. To view how non-friends on Facebook see your information and how your settings are displaying your stuff, you gotta hit this little 3-dot, there's a word for that, I just lost it. Ellipsis, thank you. Button, and then you view as public. And you can choose to view your profile as the public would see. So it'd be another Facebook user, but they're not one of your connections. So they'll only be able to see any news feed posts that you've actually posted publicly. I don't know how many of you like to post publicly or if you only post to your friends. But you can take a look and see that if you want to go out there and post career-related information, that's the stuff that you would tag to be public. Over in your intro section, you have 5 images that you can choose, and that's it. And again, it's 2-3 layout, and it depends on what order you put them in. But you can choose to display 5 images in your intro, sort of like your about page, that are shown to the public. And then you can use those as the visuals that represent you, no matter what's in your newsfeed. That changes all the time. An online portfolio. If you don't want to set up your own website to create a portfolio of your work, it might be presentations, it might be designs if you're a graphic designer, it might be web pages you've worked on, anything that sort of shows or showcases your work. I know a lot of people do what I call sanitizing work. So if you've done, proprietary work or presentations within your company, take that design idea, but change all the numbers and make it fake data, but they can see the kind of work that you've done before. There are sites like Behance for photographers and graphic designers, where you can do online portfolios or a handful of other portfolio sites. But it's another really good link to have, that this site of visual images of your work will also show up in Google searches as well. Slides, if you do talks and you do presentations, whether it's internal at your company or external at meetups and conferences and stuff like that. SlideShare was recently purchased by LinkedIn. Everybody know that? So there's a really close connection between anything you post on SlideShare and what shows up in your LinkedIn profile. So any presentation here, if you share it to LinkedIn, it shows up in your profile. And I'll show you. If I go back to viewing as a connection, this first one here is actually a SlideShare presentation. And because they're integrated, if you click on it, just like the YouTube videos, right here, you can start going through the slides and you've never left my LinkedIn profile. If you haven't used SlideShare before, it's static, no transitions, no animations. You can load a PDF or a PowerPoint, and it'll just show the static slides and put them up there. If you have a blog,
Does it read the PowerPoint file?
yeah, it reads a PowerPoint file. In fact, it will rip all of the text out of your PowerPoint file Let's see if I can bring up, if I go over to SlideShare. So here's that same presentation on SlideShare, and whether it's a PDF or PowerPoint, down here it'll rip off. So here's the slide number and any of the text that's on that slide. And so now all this text from your slides becomes searchable. So all this helps Google and LinkedIn search for and find your presentation when people are searching for topics. It doesn't do, like this presentation is a keynote, it doesn't do Apple Keynote. So for me to get stuff on SlideShare, I have to export to a PDF or to a PowerPoint file and then upload it to SlideShare. Blog posts are helpful. You really got to sort of have a commitment that you're going to run a blog if you're going to be out there writing blog posts. Probably the best advice I ever heard is if you're thinking about starting a blog, see if you can come up with 50 topics to write about. Something that you got to have enough runway that you're going to be going for 6 months writing blog posts or something like that. Otherwise, you'll do 10 and just sort of run out of steam and you're done.
A nice thing to do on that is just create a bunch of drafts with titles of subjects that you might think about.
Yes, so just placeholders
You just as placeholders.
as drafts that never get posted until you're done with them.
Right,
Right.
nice.
That's a good idea. And then content curation. So there are sites, this is one called Design Inspiration. It's like Pinterest. Pinterest is another good one, where if you don't want to write long form blog posts, but you want to gather good content about something that's related to your skills or your career or something like that, you can just gather and curate that content and find articles that are good and visuals that are good and designs that are good and put them all together into one place like a Pinterest board. And it helps demonstrate that you're committed to and actually active in that field.
Can you put Twitter to that?
You can, but Twitter is not as easily searchable. Twitter is so, I mean, all of Twitter's history is out there to all the way back to the first tweet, but people don't go searching Twitter for it. They're really just looking for what's happened right now.
I just know that I use it for research, so there's lots of really cool stuff out
Yep.
there.
The content curation that you talked about, is Pinterest the only website or?
Now, this is one called Design Inspiration. There are other just sharing sites. You can even do it on your blog or on a website. But the idea being, instead of being an author and writing all this text, you're a curator and you actually just gather links of really good stuff related to UX design or photography or graphic design or whatever. Because this kind of thing, if you've got a page that's dedicated to a topic, will show up in Google search results as well. When you're uploading your own images, please name every single photo. Don't use what the camera names these photos as DSC, and image, blah, blah, whatever. Google and Bing, but let's say Google's the one that really matters, uses words that it can parse in the image file name to help put your photos in search results. So you want to put your name, .jpeg, as the name of your profile shot, and then upload it to LinkedIn, and then upload it to Facebook and everywhere else. Because these words will be parsed and will help the search engines figure out when to display your information when people are searching. You know, here's my book cover, here's a book signing, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, you put the name in every single one of them so that it shows up and it knows, oh, that's Randy, that's Randy, that's Randy. Use a hyphen to separate words. Hyphens are word separators. Generally don't use an underscore. An underscore is a word joiner. So an underscore means put those two together and consider it one word. Most sites are getting better about uploading spaces. Yes, Brooke?
Okay, so, for me still, but, so .jpeg,
Yep.
is that an actual part of the file name or just the extension, for example, here? Or should the file name actually be Randy -
It has to be .jpg.
Okay.
Otherwise, the sites won't recognize that it's an image. If you're on a Mac, I think you're on a Mac, aren't you?
PC?
No.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll hide the extensions, trying to be nice and sweet to you, but it's actually still there.
Okay.
So on your own machine, you'd have to turn on show file extensions so you can actually see what the full extensions are.
Gotcha. Okay.
Could be PNG, could be a GIF file or whatever, but use words, use natural language words in your photos. Okay, so then we switch over to infographic resumes, which is, you've got online content, you've got a LinkedIn profile, you've got some images that are there that are going to make you memorable to anybody who looks you up, but now you also have your resume. Does everybody have a text resume? Let's start with that. Everybody has a text resume. It helps to have a text resume that you've had reviewed by other people and have a good text resume before you start trying to add any graphics to it. The resume problem, and we talked a little bit about this, is that there are hundreds of candidates for any open position out there. Candidates tend to overstuff the resume, so a one-page resume will be filled side to side with small 10-point font text and hard to find stuff. So too much text can bury the important information if it's all text on your resume, and very little stands out. The infographic resume, the way I define it, is a visual account of your history and abilities that uses data visualization design. So it's not just pretty stuff, we're not just adding colors, we're actually using data visualization to highlight your history, your skills and abilities, events you've been to, languages you speak, countries you've worked in. All these different things are data about you, and we want to visualize that data. So an infographic resume has a handful of advantages. It's easier to understand. I go back to, you're a visual creature, so if I show you a chart of skills, you can understand that faster than if I make a bullet list of skills and you actually have to read out every single one of them. Anything that's visual on your resume will draw the reader's attention before the text. So you want to highlight, I think this is one of my next slides, I'll jump ahead, but you want to highlight, I'd say 2 or 3 things that are the most important things you want someone to notice and to remember about you. Like I said, it's 65% more likely to be remembered than text alone. And absolutely it stands out. Like I said, if the recruiter's looking at 200 resumes for one open position and yours has, even if it's nothing but company logos on it, it's going to make your resume memorable compared to every other resume out there. There is a risk. There are a handful of risks of using visuals and infographic resumes. Number one is just do it badly. If yours is visually unappealing, it can hurt you. If you visualize your data incorrectly, that could hurt you. If you fail to highlight, if you highlighted something because it was easy to visualize, but it's not what you want the hiring manager to notice, you can hurt yourself because they're going to remember what you visualized. If you overdo it, it gets crazy, and you're going to see a whole bunch of examples where people, I would say, have overdone it and visualized every single thing they could on the resume. You might have different visuals to go with different positions so that you don't want to highlight web design if you're actually, in this case, going for a graphic design, job or something like that. And inappropriate design tone. So if you have a fun, lighthearted, really bright colors kind of stuff, and you're really going for a very serious, I'm trying to become a lawyer kind of role, then you can really mismatch the feel of your resume with the kind of position that you're looking for. So there are times when it's appropriate to use an infographic resume and not, because there's some people out there that still want and need a text-only resume. So in general, you're still going to want to have that text-only resume on the side. It's great in person to hand somebody that maybe you've got the text resume, but you've also got this one-page infographic resume. Something that if you're at a job fair or you're meeting somebody, or especially in an interview, you're going to hand them something, they're going to be able to take that away and remember you much clearer. And then online, we talked about LinkedIn. Guess what? You can upload files. It can be a JPEG, it can be a PDF, it could be a Word doc that has visuals built into it. And you can upload that as part of your LinkedIn profile. On a personal homepage that you create, if you have a portfolio site, you can load it there. And of course, if you want to share it broadly, you can put it out in your social media sites as well. Warning, if you get the visuals on your resume wrong, all bets are off. And this is true for infographics and data visualization design in general. If your visuals don't match your numbers, you will have no credibility whatsoever. That's not what 80% looks like. That's not what 20% looks like. The donuts don't match the data. You can have pie charts that don't add up to 100%.
Are you, oh my God.
Yes. We pick on Fox News quite a bit. They do this fairly frequently. But if you mess up the data visualization that you choose to make part of your portfolio or part of your infographic resume, you're going to really, really hurt your credibility. And all the good things about people remembering you because of the visuals are going to hurt you that much more because they're going to remember that you got it wrong.
At least they had a good source for the infographic.
Yes. So this is an infographic resume, one of the earliest ones that were out there that went viral back in, I think, 2008, I think. Things I like about it, things I don't like about it. This is his timeline. The top half of his timeline is his work history. The bottom half of his timeline is his education history. Over here, he's got his daily intake and output of coffee and humor and productivity, so he made it kind of lighthearted. And then here are his primary skill sets. Like that was 2008, there you go. It was so unique back then that people like Fast Company and National Business Insider, and I, all took notice and reposted it. And this infographic resume just went crazy. What do we call the Cinderella story? It was Chris Spurlock, who was coming out of journalism school, put this out on the journalism blog, and it also got picked up. I think this was back in 2010, graduate, 2011, and got him a job at the Huffington Post. Just because it was so popular online, and he was doing TV interviews about his resume. It was crazy. I maintain a Pinterest board, and I've got about 1,200 infographic resumes on the Pinterest board. And I call it the good, bad, and ugly. So there's no judgment. It's every infographic resume I can get my hands on are in this Pinterest board as inspiration to help give people ideas of what kind of data could be visualized, different ways to visualize your information, and also just another way to share a lot of these resumes to help people get more exposure for them. And Pinterest continuous story. This will go down 1,200 resumes. So you can skim through. There's some stuff here that's just awful, and there's some stuff here that's just fantastic.
Can we go back to the very first one, the rainbow one in 2008 that we had on the slide?
Oh, on the slide? Yeah.
So I was looking at that, and I'm looking at it, maybe it's just because my attention span is really short, lazy millennial, but I look at that, my first thought is, there's a lot to digest there, and if I was looking at it, I'm like, it's really busy, and that seems to me that might be harder to read than a normal resume, and I would just be like, it looks like the colors are nice, but like to parse through that, I'd be really tempted to just go, but
Yep.
I don't know.
That's a good lead-in.
I think probably the big deal is at the time, it was so different, right?
Right.
It stood out to people.
And primary colors, it was nice and
And
pretty.
it's irrelevant to the skill he's trying to get hired for, right? Like he wants people to know that he can present a lot of information in a small space, and you can spend time studying the resume and feel like you've gotten to know him as a person. So you can see what he was doing at the same time. He was both working here and studying this or that. It invites you in.
Now, you run some risks too.
Yeah.
I personally am not a fan of 3D charts. So to see someone design 3D charts, like, oh, 3D charts, oh, jeez. Yeah. But there are a whole bunch of risks. This is just for fun, right? This is his guess as to how funny he is throughout the day, from 8 in the morning to 2 in the morning.
Oh, that's what that is.
So that's his humor in green, his productivity. I don't know where, he just made up these numbers, right, to make this 3D area chart. He just made up these numbers, right, as relation to himself. And that's some of the things that you have to do when you're doing that kind of visualization. So if we jump ahead. Okay, so there are generally two options. The first option is you make a one-page infographic summary, but you still separately have your full text resume. right? So you choose when do you use one or the other or both. And it gives you basically the summary page, like maybe you put this on your LinkedIn page and it catches someone's attention and then they can download the PDF or the Word doc of your full text resume. Or you submit the text resume and then when you're in person doing an interview, you hand them the colorful one page and then they're going to remember you after doing 10 interviews that day. Right, so generally you have text and then a completely separate page, which is your infographic. In this case, he did a vertical timeline and then a little bit of professional investment down here, but he made that an entirely separate thing from his full text resume. Option 2 is to build a couple visualizations into your full text resume. Right, so in general, you can do this in Adobe, but you can do this in Word, right, where you've got just a little chart or a little bit of graphics, in this case a timeline down the side, but this still has all the information. You don't have to look to another page to get the details. Generally, just my personal preference, I tend to like this better than the separate page, but that's purely up to you. So here's my wife's resume. She allowed me to share her resume. All she has at the top is a visual timeline, and that's it. And the rest is, her full text resume. So when you look at it, it's just, here are the years, here are the companies she's worked for, and here's what she's done for those companies pretty simply, and that's her whole visual. Like I said earlier, when I jumped ahead, I try not to visualize more than 3 things. If you can do 2, that's great. 3, you get to 4 or 5 different things. Remember, they only got 6 seconds to look through your stuff, right? So you're going to lose track of that stuff. So pick the 3 most important things because that's what they're going to remember and what's going to attract their attention. A couple examples of people who use infographic resumes. So of course, as you would imagine, graphic designers. There are a lot of graphic designer resumes. Chief marketing officer, pastor for a church, motion graphics art directors, an operations manager, journalists, design researchers, software application developers. So it really has gone beyond just graphic designers now using infographic resumes. Trademarks is a question that come up. So trademarks, companies can trademark any logo or company name that they want to. So without any registration at all, anybody can put a TM at the end of their logo and say, hey, we claimed that trademark. Or go through the process of actually registering with the USPTO, and you actually go through that process and finally get to put the circle R at the end of your registered trademark like I have for InfoName. However, the USPTO, the whole point of trademarks is that you can't pretend to be that company, but if you're using those logos in a design, in a news report, in a blog post where you're comparing companies, it's actually fair use of those logos, which is why LinkedIn can actually put all these logos in here and they're not actually in violation of any trademark laws. And that's why you can put logos on your resume as well, because you're just showing reference to these companies. You're not claiming that you actually are that company or it's anything officially published by that company. And they bring credibility. I mean, that's why you put generally in bold and text the names of the companies that you've worked for before. But Sony's logo brings with it credibility, right? So David's worked for Sony, he's got some credibility. And if you recognize these other companies and these other logos, that also brings him credibility as a candidate. This guy did his entire resume and nothing but logos. Right, so clients he's had, well, he was freelancers, accounts he's worked on, memberships, education, so these are the university logos. He did nothing but logos. Here's the skills, his software. That's it, just logos, very little text whatsoever.
Did he get a job?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a freelancer, so he's still got contracts with his own company. Here's another big one. But these logos down here at the end, these are all the clients that he's worked with, right? And so having worked with IBM and Nike, Coca-Cola, IKEA, and Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Mercedes-Benz, right, that brings you credibility as a candidate. And it's a whole lot easier now. I think this is a lot, and it might be a little messy, but it's easier to see and recognize the logo than to read those names of companies throughout the text in the text resume. You know, this is probably, what is this, 30 logos? 20 or 30 logos? That would be a big, long bullet list on a text resume. Software, we saw a couple of these up here, right? She's got her Adobe software that she's proficient in, and using the logos instead of spelling out each software application that she's uses as part of her career. Down here is a skill set bar chart, again, using the logos of the software and how proficient they claim to be. It's self-reported. Make up your own numbers. There's no scoring there. Yes?
I used to read it, pie charts are no-no and donuts are no-no on the infographics.
Okay.
And I see a lot of them here.
Mhm.
Well, probably some of them numbers do not matter because they're made up, but
Yeah, and in fact, look at this one. I guess this is meant to be a rows diagram, not a pie chart, because otherwise you wouldn't have hundreds, right? That wouldn't add up to 100%. So it's actually full radius in these sections when they say they're fluent versus only partially languages. But yeah, it's self-reported, and you got to be careful that other people, that your audience can actually understand what you're designing.
Never use a pie chart unless it works.
So are
Yep.
those thumbnails to his portfolio?
It looks like it.
Can't tell.
That these are graphic designs that he's worked on before. If you design this and actually spend some time in HTML posting them online, you can make those clickable to actually go to those news stories. But in general, if it's going to be shared, it's got to be just a standalone JPEG. So those are really hard and really small to see.
Back to your earlier point about make sure your infographics match the data.
Yep.
We've worked with freelancers who lost a lot of credibility by rating themselves high and not being able to answer simple questions. So better to understand where you are than over, because you'll get asked about it, and if you can't back it up, then you lose credibility on everything else.
Yep. That would just the same as text, right? Don't over claim your skills.
But it's much more memorable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And in defense of pie charts, Edward Tufte is the guy who slammed pie charts, but there are situations where they're really effective.
There are good pie charts and there are bad pie charts. Bruce?
I've been amazed at the number of people who put C on their resume and can't write out a program to print "Hello World." So if you put something on there, you need to make sure you have the skill.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a very short interview.
If you're a good interviewer, and test him on it.
How do you get those, how do you get your infographics past the ATS?
Oh, we're about to get to that.
What software do they use to prepare the infographics?
We're going to get to that too. Number one, or not number one, but one of the key points is you want to make sure it's printable. A lot of departments are still printing out every resume that gets submitted. And the HR department might pick, here are the 10, put them in a folder, in a red folder for the executive, and they hand it to them to take home and read at home or something like that. There's still a lot of paper moving around. What that means is you need to design your resume to fit on a piece of paper. You don't want your resume to look like an online infographic, right? That number one is really dark, is not going to print well, and certainly it's going to get cut off or shrunk down and be unreadable if somebody tries to print it off. This works really well if it's only online, but that doesn't happen with resumes. Resumes get printed too. They also get put on iPads. So a lot of people are just skimming through resumes on iPads or tablets. So if you fit yours to basically letter-sized paper, it's going to do pretty well on a tablet as well. And they don't have to swipe around and skim. PDFs are especially nice on tablets and iPads, where all these logos or his social sites up here, all those are tappable. Those are all hot HTML links in a PDF. So if someone's viewing them on a tablet, they can then go to his LinkedIn profile or Twitter or wherever he wants to go. Test what your resume looks like in black and white. Because not only are they going to print it, they might only have a black and white printer. Might be a laser printer or something such that. So you can take your printer, your designed resume, and then print it in black and white only and just see how it comes out. And can you tell the difference between these colors anymore? This one actually does a pretty good job and comes out really nicely in black and white as well. But it's something you've got to test on your own.
Actually, I work for a huge Fortune 500 company, on the Fortune 25 company. Guarantee you, we print virtually everything in black and white, all the resumes. Guarantee you, we're probably gonna print in black and white if it's a big company.
Yep. There are a lot of government organizations that are only allowed for budgetary purposes to print in black and white. They don't even have color printers.
That usually means also that you've got good contrast. So if you've got people who are colorblind.
Yep, it helps with accessibility as well. That's a great point. This one was designed entirely in black and white, and actually designed so that it was faxable as well, which probably isn't quite as relevant. But you know, even this pie chart doesn't have patterns or colors or shades or anything. It was all minimal ink to be very printable and easy to send. So job application systems are a challenge, right? A lot of jobs now, you have to upload your resume, either text file, a text, or a Word doc of your resume. So like, number one, you still want to have that text resume on the side. The other thing is, if you, and I'll jump back, if you create option 2 and it's a Word doc plus your graphics in one resume, anything that you visualize, if this is built in Word, these images, like all this text for these bar charts, you need to have in the text as well. Because you can upload this as a Word doc to the application systems and it'll just strip out the visuals and parse all the text because it knows how to read all the text in Word. So all this timeline, these years, this year needs to be in this text because otherwise it's lost. And the parser for the automated systems will lose it. So you just got to know that anything, you could actually submit this, but everything in the graphics has to be in the text as well. Or have a completely standalone separate text resume like you already have. Did you have another question related to the automated systems, the submission systems? So you can do it either way. There are, that I know of, 10 website companies that will automatically create an infographic resume for you. You give it your LinkedIn credentials as part of your login, it will scrape everything it can out of your public LinkedIn profile and use one of its templates to lay out the information it's found. And then you go in and you can edit and you can add jobs that are missing or information that wasn't on LinkedIn and decide which visuals and change the colors and stuff like that. These are all pretty new still. Infographic resumes have probably only been around since about 2007, 2008. And so they're still pretty new. But as they continue to get more and more popular, using sites like these could start looking like using standard PowerPoint templates. Because every site has their own selection of pre-built templates and you can actually see, like I know this resume came from a particular site.
I was just going to ask if there are any 2 or 3 that stand out to you as being better.
No, not specifically.
All kind of the same.
I don't use any of them because I design my own. But as a company, we've designed infographic resumes for people, so we wouldn't use one of these sites, but most of them are free to try. Handful of them then want you to pay for the service of making it downloadable and actually giving you a landing page that someone can go to and see your infographic resume, that kind of thing. But in general, the same advice I would give you if you were designing DataViz charts in PowerPoint is make it your own. Don't just use the template and say, okay, I'm done, and move on. Change the colors, change the layout, make it uniquely yours so that it doesn't look like somebody else's resume in the same file. LinkedIn used to do this. They have this service called LinkedIn Labs. They used to network a visual of your entire set of connections. There are things you can do in LinkedIn. They actually got rid of it recently, but some people like to do this type of visual, which is showing these clusters of, hey, this is one industry or this is one company and this is, the school I went to and stuff like that, and sort of show different kinds of visuals on their infographic resumes. Timelines are probably the most common thing to visualize. It's really easy to show your work history and your education history in a timeline. Volunteer positions, how long you've been doing education, it does a really good job I think you mentioned earlier of showing that you've done some education, you've continued your education at the same time you have work history. Does a really good job of showing that, whether it's doing seminars or workshops or actual classes and working on another degree, that kind of thing. Some infographic resumes are nothing but the timeline. So this is like a separate page, and the entire graphic here is nothing but the timeline and nothing else. Or you can build the timeline. This is pretty complex, but you can build a timeline into the overall resume. Yep.
Going back one slide to the, trying to figure out the height and or depth of those lines mean anything, or is it?
Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. I don't know if this one in particular says that the height of the line means anything. I don't see that it does. Energy expenditure over time.
It's what?
Energy expenditure over time. You know, where some of other ones will just, they won't have like an area chart, they'll just line up time buckets.
Great implication that you've gotten better recently.
In theory, right? Self-claimed.
Right.
This is a vertical one. And I can't tell, I guess it goes from the bottom up because things get better as you get higher up. Skill charts are very common as well. Whether it's software applications or skills you've learned that are relevant to your job, you know, like public speaking or web design or whatever, major achievements. Again, it's your own judgment as to how big those bars in a skill chart should be. You know, how you're super proficient in programming in C, but not very good in Java. This one's nothing but bar charts of skills, and this one's black, which makes it really hard to see in print, but it's easy to see online. This was the tall one from earlier, but he's got a nice skill chart that shows his practice areas and technologies he's familiar with. Geography. So this has got a lot going on, but she's got this map here of all the places color-coded that she's worked or gone for educational purposes. If you're doing any kind of international role or need to show international languages, maps are very easy to read and very quick and easy to remember. This one was a little more complicated, so these are actual silhouettes of states that he's been in, so if you don't recognize the states, that actually becomes a little bit harder. If you don't know what Massachusetts looks like. And then, you know, this is obviously a lot more fun. He's talking about his awesomeness and certain skills with his mustache bar chart. This one actually shows here color-coded conferences, education, and even family school trips. So it was a student trying to get a job. It didn't have a whole bunch of work history, but they have had, you know, global experience. Business cards. There are a handful of good examples, but very few that I can even find of people that are trying to visualize information on their business card, whether it's maybe a company stat or an individual stat, but actually starting to put graphics on the business cards themselves. Evernote users in the room? Many? I would suggest everybody test photographing your card in Evernote. And if you don't have Evernote, you can get it for free and try it, or go to somebody that has it and figure out, can Evernote, when they snap a photo of your business card, actually read the information on your business card? Because that's what I do with all the business cards that I get. I photograph them in Evernote. If Evernote can read the email address, it'll find that email address on LinkedIn and fill in the rest of the information. But you want to test and make sure that your business card is actually viewable and understandable by Evernote. And then I throw the business card away.
Also, that it's viewable and understandable by anybody that is over 40 and has reading glasses.
Yeah, and is trying to read it. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I photograph it, is that I don't have to go like this and try to figure out what it is. If the camera can figure it out, then I don't have to. There are even job posting infographics. So going the other direction, infographics showing, you know, what it's like to work at the company, what the work environment is, what skills are required for a particular job. You're starting to see some companies start to now, in the massive open positions out there, actually try to advertise and get a little more attention to their open positions by using infographics and DataViz as well. So, 200 resumes that somebody has to read, right? You want to make it so you stand out. And remember, remember that one that was like 10 o'clock this morning we read it, but let's go pull that one out again. You do want to use different styles. I'll only mention this briefly. In infographic design or presentation design, you don't want to use the same kind of chart over and over and over and over and over again. If you make a report that's got 100 bar charts in it, your audience can't remember the difference. The same is true on an infographic resume. I would say generally don't make everything bar charts. Mix it up a little bit so that your audience knows this was skills, this was my timeline history, and these are the languages I speak, and they're different types of visuals. There's a free site online called the Data Visualization Catalog that is just there. It's a personal project of Severino to detail all these different visualization styles. So if you click on any one of these, it's got its own page showing you examples of it in use. If available, even links to tools that can create these different data visualization styles, but really just inspiration of different ways that you can visualize the data, just like the Pinterest board gives you different ways that you can visualize your resume data. On the Cool Infographics site, I've got a couple hundred different just data viz tools. There's a section there of infographic resumes that has those links to those 10 companies. But also if you just want to go create a map, there's a section for geographic mapping data or a word cloud that you want to put in your resume. There's a section of word cloud tools, that kind of thing. So you can find all kinds of things on the tools page. There is one other book other than my book that is about infographic resumes if you want to take a look. Hannah wrote a book about infographic resumes as well. It's a great little book. And she dedicated the whole book where my book only has a chapter on infographic resumes. Her site is Career Sherpa. She's all about career search. She does some great advice and articles as well in addition to her book. Highly recommend you follow her as well. I do have a LinkedIn group for Cool Infographics where generally we have people post and ask questions and share links for data visualizations, infographics, marketing of infographics, but also for infographic resumes. So feel free to join the group at bit.ly/coolinfogroup. You can lurk, you can answer questions, you can ask your own, pose questions. We got about, I don't know what we're up to now, 1,400 or 1,500 members out there, so it's a pretty good audience. If you didn't win my book tonight, you can download a chapter for free. The first chapter is a PDF. If you go to coolinfographics.com/book, I have a copy here if you just want to page through and take a look at it, and there is one chapter that's dedicated to nothing but infographic resumes. And I'll open it up to any other questions. You guys got anything else? And that's all I got. We'll wrap it up. Thank you very much. Join the group, have a cookie, take a drink.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Randy, did you cover what tools you were looking for? Someone asked that earlier, what software you use.